Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. President Biden today got his third booster shot while urging Americans to get one each year. But how does that fit in with what he said just a month ago that the pandemic is now over? NTD's Iris Tao has more from the White House.
In front of rolling cameras, Biden once again getting jabbed, and he urges Americans to do the same on a yearly basis.
Our nation's health experts recommend that they get the updated COVID vaccine once a year. In other words, it's just like the flu shot.
Biden adds that Americans are still being hospitalized, and winter months could bring more COVID cases and deaths. And that comes after he said this just about a month ago.
The pandemic is over.
And Biden today also urged Congress to pass more pandemic funding, but he was questioned whether COVID is still a national emergency. The president, however, did not give a clear answer.
Mr. President, is COVID still a national emergency?
It's a necessity to deal with making sure it doesn't become one.
And on that front, John Leake, who co-authored a book called The Courage to Face COVID-19, tells me that he thinks the story seems to be constantly changing here.
I think it's completely incoherent. He himself declared the pandemic is over. At the same time, the official emergency has not been revoked, so there's that contradiction.
Leake also points to some of the concerning reports about the vaccine that he's been seeing.
Young athletes collapse on the field, and it's represented in the media as a mystery. I would like to ask the president, is he aware of these incidents?
The shot Biden got today was the so-called updated bivalent booster, which is set to target the original virus strain and 2 Omicron subvariants. But after it's rolled out about 2 months ago, only about 10% of those eligible have chosen to get it. And that comes as recent CDC data shows that interest in boosters is declining with each additional shot. Yet Biden today is saying Americans should continue getting boosted.
And if you don't, you're putting yourself and other people at unnecessary risk.
Meanwhile, a New York Supreme Court on Monday struck down New York City's vaccine mandate for all city workers, which have seen over 2,000 city employees fired. The judge called the mandate arbitrary and capricious, while citing Biden's remarks that the pandemic is over. And Biden today was asked if he thinks the ruling was a mistake.
No, I don't think. That's a local judgment.
Reporting in Washington, D.C., Iris Tao, NTD News.
Authorities say a dump truck driver is in custody after a human smuggling attempt was busted in Texas. The Texas Department of Public Safety released these photos of dozens of people inside of the dump truck in Cotulla. More than 60 illegal immigrants were packed inside. According to the DPS, the unnamed driver was attempting to smuggle them. The driver was arrested, and U.S. Border Patrol took custody of the illegal immigrants. More than 300,000 illegal encounters this past year in Arizona's Yuma sector alone. That's more than double that of last year. Many coming from a variety of countries. Where are they coming from, and how is the border city handling it? NTD's Melina Wisecup reports from Arizona.
Like clockwork, illegal immigrants from around the world line up right here waiting for Border Patrol to come and get them.
We're here in Arizona at the Yuma sector of the border. Right across the way is Mexico. There is a long line of people behind me waiting to be processed, and we're told this is happening on a daily basis at this level of capacity.
It's become unmanageable now with the amount of people coming across. It's incredibly difficult. We're going into a little bit of a recession. For example, in the food bank, I had 1,200 new customers last month.
Around 200 per hour at certain times, or in total 800 per day show up. That's compared with roughly 700 to 800 per month on average in 2020. Many of them make their way over to the border after flying into Mexico City or Cancun. Like Shota, who tells us he was on vacation in Mexico before deciding to travel into the USA, where he hopes to stay.
I came here for journey, and after I decided to game USA because USA, it's my childhood dream. It is not just for came here and make money and buy something in my country or maybe here. No, I love your country.
A few others we spoke to came from Russia, fleeing to avoid being enlisted into the war. There were also groups from Colombia. After they're processed, buses load them up to take them to different areas in Arizona. or just right here at local non-governmental organizations known as NGOs.
You know, when this first started, you could tell that they were refugees. Now, they all have money. It's a different type of immigration, illegal immigrations.
When they're released by immigration, we go pick them up at the immigration center. They come here and we test them for COVID. Once they test negative, we help them right here at our car center to call their family members. We can also help them book flights if they have the money, or we can help them call their family members.
The NGOs in Arizona were just sent money from FEMA to help with the costs. The total amount is unknown, but it's expected to be in the millions, as places like Washington, D.C. have already gotten $2 million in assistance to help with illegal immigrants. And while the NGOs can help with some things, the city must also take on some of the load.
Specifically, our hospital is at over $22 million of unreimbursed medical care for the people that are coming across. Our food banks are being overwhelmed.
Meanwhile, the gaps in the border wall here in Yuma are expected to be closed after the Biden administration granted new construction contracts in July. Reporting in Yuma, Arizona, Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
High interest rates are pushing prospective buyers out of the market. Mortgage rates have risen and the cost of borrowing is more than what many can afford, causing home prices to cool. In August, seasonally adjusted home prices fell by 9% month over month. The drop between July and August was the largest deceleration of home prices in the history of the index. Consumer confidence is also plummeting. Data tracked by the Conference Board is showing a decline in the Consumer Confidence Index between September and October. It's lower than economists were expecting and just shy of an overall negative sentiment about the economy. And now talking about housing, many Americans this winter could be struggling to heat their homes amid unstable energy costs. And President Biden announced the last of the oil he approved to release from the strategic oil reserves and that they will go to market in late December. Joining us to discuss the energy crisis America is facing right now, we have Kathleen Sgamma, president of the Western Energy Alliance. Kathleen Sgamma, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Kathleen, the president has tapped into the nation's strategic oil reserves twice now before the midterms. He made a telling proposition last week to the Saudis, asking them not to cut production until after the midterms. Where do you see oil prices going, let's say, December, January, February?
Well, I am not a market analyst, so I'm not the best to predict. But I do enjoy, well, I guess I don't enjoy, but it's interesting to see that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is now the Strategic Political Reserve, because it's clear that the Democrats and President Biden are feeling serious political heat about high gasoline prices. And as that election comes closer and closer, they're panicking, and the president is using that SPR for really what it was not intended to do, which is to save a political party.
Now, winter is a time when Americans rely on oil to heat their homes, unlike a vehicle where, say, you could cut back or drive less. Many Americans need, heat for their homes. How big of a concern is this for those in colder winter states relying on oil?
Well, luckily, most of the country has more sane energy policies than New England. New England and some parts of New York are ones that are more dependent on home heating oil. Most of the rest of the country uses natural gas to heat, which is more clean burning for heating, more efficient, and less expensive than heating with oil. So if New England didn't spend so much time blocking natural gas pipelines to the most prolific natural gas field in the country in Pennsylvania, then they probably would not be feeling this squeeze as much. So, but the bottom line is, politicians' folly should not be borne by people who have really little to do with those decisions, although voters in New England should certainly consider that as they're casting their ballots. So it's really unfortunate that politicians have blocked natural gas infrastructure, because it is much cheaper to heat and better for the environment to heat with natural gas. Now, having said that, natural gas prices are also actually high this year, again, because natural gas production has been limited by this administration, infrastructure has been stopped, and those regulations they have not backed off on. So we are seeing higher natural gas prices than usual as well, but home heating oil will be particularly high.
Now, in terms of the Keystone XL pipeline being stopped by the Biden administration, we hear that this could be, one of the key factors. Is it really as simple as if that were to be let loose again, that we would see oil prices drastically shift?
Well, it's not just one thing. Keystone XL was really important because it was day one. It was the first thing President Biden did, and it was a signal that I'm going to stop oil and natural gas development, infrastructure, anything that will provide inexpensive, reliable energy to the American people. I'm going to stop all that in the name of climate change. So it was a strong signal. And certainly if he had that pipeline was ready to be built out last year. So that certainly blocked a supply of oil from a friendly nation, Canada. And instead, we've got a situation where the president is going hat in hand to Venezuela and Saudi Arabia and Iran. So, he's reaping what he sowed with that announcement. But it's not just Keystone. A week later, he blocked leasing on federal lands and waters. Well, we get about a quarter of our oil from federal lands and waters. So it's regulation on top of regulation, financial regulations meant to chase capital away from oil and natural gas. It's a whole bunch of different policies that are together adding up to make this inflation worse, make this energy inflation worse, not just now, but into the future.
Kathleen Sgamma, really appreciate you joining us.
My pleasure.
And the Alaska Republican Party has voted to censure Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. They say he used money from the Senate Leadership Fund for political ads targeting their endorsed candidate, Kelly Tshibaka. McConnell is supporting incumbent Senator Lisa Murkowski, who voted to convict then-President Trump in his second impeachment trial after January 6th. The Alaska Republican Party's endorsed candidate, Kelly Tshibaka, is also endorsed by former President Trump. The Alaska Republicans voted 49-8 to censure McConnell. McConnell allegedly spent millions from the Senate Leadership Fund on ads attacking Tshibaka. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.